Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Core 3 has been pretty incredible so far. So many aspects of the final arc of the manga are being improved upon. The anime has given us incredible new fight scenes, unexpected flashbacks, as well as pieces of information that expand upon the Bleach lore which were not contained in the manga. Now, after doing a lot of extensive research, I've discovered even more hidden details which connect the Ishida family as well as Yhwach's army to the hands of the Soul King. Honestly, I'm not kidding when I say that there is a lot more to Soken and Ryuken Ishida, and in this video I'm going to uncover absolutely everything that there is to know about the secrets of the Quincy and their link to the Soul King. I'll be explaining everything that there is to know about the Ishida family, as well as revealing a new detail about Ryuken's mother which not many of you will know about. Also, you're definitely going to want to stick around until the very end of this video because I'm going to reveal a plausible theory as to how Uryu, a mixed-blooded Quincy, was able to survive the Auswahlen, and the answer is going to definitely shock you. This video is a testament to the details that Kubo hides in plain sight, because so much of this information has been made available for years but has hardly ever been pieced together like this. So without further delay, let's dive into my ultimate Bleach theory on the Quincy and how everything is connected to the Soul King. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Hollow Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. During the Everything But the Rain flashback, we get to see the past of Masaki, Ryuken, and Isshin in detail. Now, there is a small piece of information within this flashback which is often overlooked, and it is something that I didn't even notice until now. In chapter 534 and in episode 12 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime, after Masaki collapses, we see Ryuken's mother, Izumi Ishida, yell out to him that he is putting himself in danger by being with that unknown thing. If you analyze her leg here in this manga panel, it's apparent that Kubo has taken the time to reveal that she has a scar which looks strikingly similar to the mark that one would receive after a hollow attack. And this is even shown to us in a scene within the anime. Now compare this wound to the one that we see on Orihime's leg in chapter 3, as the hollow mark is in the exact same location and it looks almost identical in appearance. To be honest, this all but confirms that Ryuken's mother, and incidentally Uryu's grandmother, has the potential to give birth to a Fullbringer, or could be a Quincy Fullbringer hybrid. This appears to be the case at least during the Everything But the Rain flashback, but maybe this is why she reacted so strongly to Masaki being tainted by the Hollow White. Her emotional reaction could have been hypocritical, as she may have been projecting the fear and shame of herself being tainted by a Hollow onto Masaki, who was undergoing hollification at the time. It's hard for me to say with certainty that she received the hollow mark before or after giving birth to Ryuken, but for the purposes of this video, I want to theorize that she was attacked by the hollow before giving birth to Ryuken. This makes it possible for Ryuken to have been born as a Quincy Fullbringer hybrid, while Uryu would have been born as a Quincy human Fullbringer hybrid. I will go into more detail about the differences between the two later, but for now, let's have a look at how Uryu being a hybrid leads to him having some interesting parallels with Ichigo, and how their moments of growth and evolution in Bleach mirror each other. A lot of people have noted the similarities between the final Getsuga Tensho and Uryu's Lead Steel ability. Both Uryu and Ichigo utilized these respective transformations or powers as a last resort in order to defeat their opponents. Uryu lost his Quincy powers in the Soul Society arc, and Ichigo lost his Shinigami powers in the Arrancar arc. Ichigo is able to reacquire his Shinigami powers when Rukia uses a special sword with no blade which Urahara had prepared for him. him. In chapter 460, we learn that the spiritual pressure of multiple Shinigami was poured into the sword, which was able to restore Ichigo's Shinigami powers. Now keep this in mind as we look at how Uryu regained his Quincy powers in chapter 226. With the details that we have discussed, it really sheds a new light on this brief training sequence. We see Ryuken push Uryu to his limit as he can barely move his arms and legs. Ryuken told him that if he keeps dodging his arrows, then eventually he would regain his Quincy powers, but Uryu begins to think that he was lied to. Using his final Ginto, he summons the technique Greets, which is a restraint that surrounds the target. Look at how it seems like Ryuken is trapped, but then suddenly the Reishi restraint dematerializes, and it's almost as if Ryuken has negated it. This may as well be the first demonstration of a Shrift ability in the series, because I'm going to explain why Ryuken may have a Shrift shortly. While Uryu is at his limit with no way left to fight back, Ryuken apologizes and fires an arrow through his chest. He explains that he needed to push Uryu's mind and body to their limits, and while in that condition, if he is struck by a spirit arrow 19mm to the right of his heart's sinoatrial node, this is the only way that he would be able to regain his Quincy powers, which were lost from the Let's Steal form. Now look side by side at how both Uryu and Ichigo appear to have been struck through the chest in exactly the same manner at the very moment where they reacquire their respective powers. This is such a fascinating parallel, and it may have a deeper meaning that I haven't come across yet, but it is important to note nonetheless. Ichigo and Uryu lose their powers using similar abilities, and they regain their powers by being pierced through the chest. Ryuken training Uryu had also served to alter our perception of his character. In chapter 124, Ryuken was introduced into the story as somebody who has abandoned the ways of the Quincy. We see that he even told a young Uryu to stop visiting his grandfather, as he had explained that there is no sense in saving the dead, because that is the job of the Shinigami. He advises him to better spend his time by learning to save the living. Ryuken clarifies that he isn't interested in Quincy's, and he says that Uryu doesn't seem to have the talent for being a Quincy anyway. He advises Uryu to just let the Quincy die out with his father's generation, explaining that there is no money to be made by being a Quincy. Now, aside from the fact that he sounds a lot like Seto Kaiba, Ryuken not being upfront with Uryu is a continuous trend within the story. Kubo purposefully writes Ryuken to be like this, and in the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, we do get several anime-exclusive scenes involving both Ryuken and Uryu. In episode 3 of Core 1, Ryuken sees Uryu looking through their family archives as he tells him off for not asking for his permission before doing so. Uryu asks him why are the Quincy's attacking the Soul Society and Hueco Mundo, but Ryuken tells him that it has nothing to do with him and he won't find the answers to his questions in the library. Later, he finds Uryu in his office reading through a journal which had belonged to Soken Ishida. This confirms that Ryuken had known about Yhwach and the Vandenreich, as Uryu demands for answers, wanting to know about them as well as the fate of his mother. Ryuken once again dismisses his questions, saying that it has nothing to do with him. Not getting answers from his father, Uryu leaves to read the rest of Soken Ishida's journal. In episode 6 of the 1000-Year Blood War anime, we see Uryu sitting at a riverbank reading the journal as he learns about a Quincy extermination from 1000 years ago that he didn't know about. He questions what it has to do with the extermination from 200 years ago. Here he discovers that Yhwach's Empire of Light was defeated 1000 years ago by the Gotei 13, and the Shinigami then decided to eliminate the remaining Quincy's 200 years ago. The anime does a fantastic job of convincing us that Uryu has a motive to join Yhwach while keeping his true intentions a mystery. In episode 11, we see an anime exclusive scene of Hashward meeting with Uryu, and this is presumably the moment where he is enlisted into the Vandenreich. In episode 12, Ryuken is shown at the riverbank where Uryu was as he discovers Soken's journal on the ground left behind by Uryu. Episode 14, the very first episode of Core 2, is fascinating. This is where Uryu officially joins Yhwach's army and is appointed as his successor. Uryu questions Yhwach's decision as he is glad that his underlings don't just blindly follow his orders. He reveals that it is because there is a reason that Uryu is still alive despite his ability Auswahlen having killed all of the mixed-blooded Quincy 9 years ago. Uryu explains that following the death of his mother, he had wondered why he had survived and she did not, then revealing that he found the answer within his grandfather's journal. Yhwach's words here confirm what Uryu had read in the journal, that the factions of the Shinigami and Quincy would never be able to get along. This is a little bit of a contradiction because we know that Soken Ishida tried to maintain good relations with the Shinigami, so it would be contradictory to his beliefs if this was the conclusion that Uryu had acquired from his journal. So there is something in the journal that we still don't know about which Uryu is concealing, as he is effectively buttering up Yhwach here in order to earn his trust, saying that he had severed all of his ties in order to join Yuha's army in a bid to end the Shinigami. We are shown even more anime-only glimpses of Ryuken and Isshin reacting to the death of the Soul King in Core 3. All of these additions that we have discussed appear to be expanding upon Uryu's role within the story, as well as promising us an expansion of the role of Ryuken and Isshin, who I believe are integral to the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and the fact that they only showed up at the very end of the manga to deliver the still silver arrowhead to Uryu was really disappointing in my opinion. However, I'm very confident that all of this is going to be changed, especially in Core 4 of the anime, where I believe we will be getting the most anime exclusive additions. The reason behind Ryuken's dismissiveness and his desire for Uryu to be distant from the Quincy is somewhat hinted at within chapter 124. A young Uryu is seen speaking with his grandfather, who tells him that Ryuken has a point. It is important to focus on trying to make a living to support a family, but he also says that Uryu isn't wrong either. We learn about Uryu's motives here as he states that he can see hollows and the people that they attack. He is aware that the Shinigami cannot handle all of them on their own, adding that he knows that his dad can see it too, but why does he choose to ignore it? Uryu affirms that he wants to change his father's mind about Quincy's by proving that they are worth something. He wants to do this by becoming a powerful Quincy who is able to protect others from hollows. Soken in response had told Uryu to try and understand his father, sharing with him that what he believes to be right depends on what he wants to protect, and this is just how people are. Uryu assumes that his father probably wants to protect his money, but Soken looks at him with a somber expression as he decides not to tell Uryu, explaining to him that he will find out in time. He adds that when Uryu finds out, in turn he too will know what he wants to protect. Soken had gifted Uryu the Sanrei glove here, explaining that he needs to decide if he wants to walk down the path of a Quincy after he learns about what his father cares about the most and he discovers what he truly wants to protect. Soken hints that if he still decides to be a Quincy after learning all of this, then he is going to face a battle that he cannot avoid, one that is beyond his abilities. A time will come when he will have to sacrifice himself by using the powers of the Sanrei glove. Before Uryu uses Let's Steal against Mayuri, in an internal monologue, he apologizes to his grandfather, as he states that he still doesn't understand his father, and he still isn't sure of what he wants to protect. Now, I believe that after reading all of his grandfather's journal, Uryu understands at least what he wants to protect, and what was important to his father. Now, this is why we don't see Uryu interact with his father again before he joins Yhwach's army. At this point, I think that Uryu has decided to sacrifice everything for that inevitable battle which Soken had warned him about. I do think that it makes sense that Soken gave Uryu the Sanrei glove with the intention for him to use it against Yhwach, who was destined to return. If it wasn't obvious enough, underneath that cold exterior, Ryuken cares about his family the most, and he was trying to protect Uryu by distancing him from the path of a Quincy. Soken understood this, and he knew about the pain that Ryuken would have felt 9 years ago when he had lost his wife to Auswahlen. The death of Kanai Katagiri was the first hint of this battle that they will not be able to avoid if they choose to walk down the path of a Quincy. While outwardly saying to Uryu he abandoned the Quincy, it is evident that he didn't. Ryuken had an underground training facility underneath Karakura Hospital. He wore Quincy markings on his tie, and then think about his proficient display of Quincy powers during the Arrancar arc when he had trained Uryu. Ryuken intended for Uryu to live a normal life, while he who was on the path of a Quincy already had decided to face off against Yhwach in order to avenge the death of his wife. Both Isshin and Ryuken were destined to meet and form a unique connection through a shared trauma. They both lost their partners because of Yhwach. 9 years before the present timeline, Yhwach forcibly took the power of all mixed-blooded Quincy, and this indirectly led to the death of Masaki while directly causing the death of Kanai Katagiri. This is the reason why their characters need to at least exchange some dialogue with Yhwach, I think. It would be incredible to see them interact. While Kubo does a fantastic job of not overtly revealing their motives and allowing their sons to respectively do the avenging for them, I still feel like Isshin and Ryuken needed more screen time at the very least. Now that we know more about Uryu and Ryuken, including their backstory and motives, I think that we can further speculate about how Uryu survived Auswahlen and why Ryuken may not actually be a pure-blooded Quincy. If a Quincy is born with a fragment of the Soul King, as demonstrated by Gerard and Pernida, we know that they will awaken Shrift powers without the help of Yhwach needing to share a fragment of his soul with them. In chapter 656, we learn that Gerard and Pernida had their respective abilities from the very beginning, and they were incredibly powerful Shrift abilities too. The Miracle and the Compulsory are examples of powers that manifest on their own when a Quincy is born with a fragment of the Soul King. What does this have to do with Uryu Ishida? If Izumi Ishida was attacked by a Hollow, let's assume that this attack happened early in her life, before she and Soken had Ryuken, so Ryuken would have been born as a part Fullbringer and Quincy hybrid, and incidentally, Uryu would have been born as a part human Fullbringer and Quincy hybrid. We know that Fullbringers are born with a fragment of the Soul King. This means that both Ryuken and Uryu would have had latent Shrift abilities from birth. Uryu doesn't awaken the antithesis properly until the final arc, but it could be assumed that the antithesis was there working in the background, preventing Uryu from being affected by Auswahlen. Drinking the blood of Yhwach most likely brought these latent abilities to the forefront, and this could be similar to how Ichigo was able to subconsciously use Quincy abilities via Ordman Zangetsu before they were awakened in the final arc. My theory proposes that Uryu is in fact still the only mixed-blooded Quincy to have survived Auswahlen, because looking at Ryuken, he wouldn't have been considered to be a mixed-blooded Quincy because he is in fact very similar to Gerard and Pernida, who are Quincy's who contain Soul King fragments. Gerard and Pernida were not deemed to be mixed-blooded, but I do think the fact that they contain Soul King fragments leads to them overcompensating a little. Gerard with how he believes himself to be the mightiest of all Quincy, and Pernida with how he takes great pride in being a Quincy. So this basically proposes that Uryu has the antithesis as a latent Shrift power from birth, and Ryuken seems to have an undisclosed powerful Shrift ability of his own, which may or may not have been showcased in chapter 226. If I am correct, Kubo may have a chance to formally reveal Ryuken's Shrift to us in anime exclusive scenes for the 1000-year Blood War arc. Uryu's new powers that he had showcased during his battle against Senjumaru had hinted at him having a connection to Mimihagi. We saw a blue light pattern appear on the back of Uryu's hand, which had resembled the form of Mimihagi. Mimihagi is the right hand of the Soul King. We know that it serves to govern over stillness, and it is the opposite of Pernida, the left hand of the Soul King, who governs over progress. This theme of progress and stillness seems to be intricately linked to the Quincy, but before I explain how, let's establish a few more important details. The term Quincy is derived from the Latin word quint, which means fifth or five. The number 5 is seen repeatedly with the 5-pointed Quincy cross, which is often thought to be a star, but it can also be interpreted as the 5 points of a hand, the 4 fingers and a thumb. So it would make sense that both hands of the Soul King are Quincy, and this is being heavily teased within the anime too. I made a video about this last week where I discuss how Uryu's new powers are linked to Mimihagi and how Mimihagi is a Quincy, so go check out that video after this one. We know Mimihagi governs over stillness, and I don't think that it is a mere coincidence that the silver clot formed within the heart of an Auswahlen victim is called the Silver of Stillness. In chapter 617, Yhwach confirms that he was not able to foresee Mimihagi with the Almighty. This is where the theme of progress and stillness comes into play, because in previous videos on the channel, I have theorized about there being 2 main Quincy factions: the traditional Quincy like Soken Ishida and his family, and the evolved Quincy like Yhwach and his family. Yhwach's Quincy represent progress, thus explaining why Pernida, the left hand of the Soul King, has aligned with them. In chapter 491, we learn that Let Steel is a relic of the past which died out 200 years ago, and it served as a predecessor to the Quincy Volstandig or Holy Form. What is fascinating is Kilgay name drops Soken Ishida, stating that he rejected the research and evolution of Yhwach and the Sternritter, explaining how the Quincy Holy Form is far superior to the Let Steel power. Soken Ishida is confirmed to have opposed progress and preferred to stick to the traditional Quincy teachings, while Yhwach and his Quincy had evolved by incorporating Soul King fragments into their bodies via Yhwach sharing fragments of his soul with them. I theorize that these Quincy have progressed into Quincy Fullbringer hybrids who have awakened unique abilities called Shrifts. Logically, if Mimihagi is the counterpart to Pernida, we can assume that Mimihagi has aligned itself with the traditional ways of the Quincy, which fit this theme of stillness. Soken Ishida preferred to remain as a pure Quincy, hence why his wife Izumi had arranged for the marriage of Ryuken and Masaki so that their lineage would remain pure-blooded. This branch of the Quincy which Ryuken, Soken and Uryu belonged to had known about the Silver of Stillness, a phenomenon which is apparently linked to Mimihagi. In chapter 659, Uryu sees his father operating on the corpse of his mother. He questions why his father is cutting her, telling him not to, as Ryuken looks back at him without saying a word. That memory was the reason why Uryu had decided that he wouldn't become a doctor, linking the profession to the reason why his father was doing the autopsy. In chapter 682, when Ryuken gives the still silver arrowhead to Uryu, he tells him that the arrowhead is made from the silver clot formed within the heart of an Auswahlen victim. Ryuken tells him that this arrowhead should be fired by him. We established that Yhwach didn't see Mimihagi since its power governs stillness, and the Silver of Stillness, I believe, is also derived from Mimihagi, which explains why Yhwach was also unable to see it. When the arrowhead pierces Yhwach, we learn that Soken Ishida had told Ryuken that for a brief moment the caster of Auswahlen will be rendered powerless when the Silver of Stillness mixes with the caster's blood. This pretty much explains everything that I have on the secrets of the Ishida family, how it links to Yhwach's Quincy, and how Mimihagi and Pernida are linked to all of this. So no, the still silver arrowhead did not come out of nowhere. It was clearly being set up for a while, but unfortunately, because of the rushed manga ending, I don't think that Kubo was able to tie everything together as he had wanted to, which is why we are seeing so many additions to the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. I have one thing left to discuss, which is why did Ryuken give the arrowhead to Uryu? While Ryuken was cold and dismissive to Uryu throughout Bleach, it has to be said that it was incredibly emotional to see him hand the arrowhead to his son. He trusted Uryu with avenging the death of his wife. Ryuken acknowledges the strength and growth of Uryu in this moment, while Uryu finally understands just how much family means to Ryuken. He finally knows what his father wants to protect. Uryu takes the arrowhead just like Soken had predicted, as he too knows what he wants to protect at this moment. Brief moments like this say so much without saying anything at all. It remains true to Kubo's writing style of show don't tell, and if it is hidden, it is the flower. Over the course of this video, we've uncovered some fascinating connections between the Ishida family and the deeper mysterious forces that are at play within the Bleach world. We've looked at Ryuken's mother, the possibility of Quincy Fullbringer hybrids, to Uryu's survival of Auswahlen, and the role that Pernida and Mimihagi play in all of this. I do look forward to seeing more additions within the anime, but for now I do want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Do you agree with my rationale for the theories that I've explained in this video? If you have any other information, then do let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. I'd love to know all of your own personal theories. I think that I've done a pretty solid job of trying to tie everything together. If I've missed anything, then definitely let me know. But for now, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.